The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
A minute in the beginning. Okay, there we go. Hey, Felipe, how are you? Okay, great.
Hi, Dr.
So,
Krishna.
good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in various parts of the world. Thank you so much for joining us. We have more than 200 people, most of them students, and all excited to hear what Felipe has to tell us today. Okay, so just to pump you up a little bit before the main act. I think if you have read the summary, the abstract, and it goes something like this. I'll just read a couple of sentences. It says, Climate Reality Project is an initiative founded by Al Gore in 2006 with the purpose of turning awareness into action for climate change. The key word there is action. It is led by a diverse group of people around the world who work towards expanding environmental sustainability. Okay. Another key sentence in that whole abstract is climate change is an issue that affects all human communities and requires comprehensive and innovative actions from all of us. Okay. And then one more key sentence from that abstract is by outlining the current environmental needs, we wish to inspire a multicultural group of leaders to take action locally and globally through social media. So that's what today's presentation is all about. And the speaker is Felipe Gómez Gallo. I hope I pronounced it reasonably well. A master's student in environmental engineering with majors in environmental and civil engineering and a minor in biodiversity studies and environmental science from the Universidad de los Andes in Colombia, with a great interest in sustainability, climate change adaptation, risk assessment, and engineering education. He is the current president of Student Platform for Engineering Education Development, which many of you know as SPEED. So with that, and without any further delay, I'm going to give this over to Felipe. Over to you, Felipe. Your slides are showing, and I'm going to turn my face off, and you can do the same too, so that people can focus on the presentation. And we have now reached 300 students, mostly students. Okay, good.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Krishna. So let's start. Thank you very much to everyone who is attending this special webinar. This is the first one of 2021. I'm really excited to be part of this webinar series. So yeah, let's talk about climate action and how we can take some environmental activism into our lives. So firstly, I would like to thank the Climate Reality Project. As Dr. Krishna said, is an initiative founded by Al Gore in 2006 with the purpose of turning awareness into action for climate change. I was trained last year during an online training program that they had, and I was able to become a climate reality leader. So yeah, that's why we are all here, and I will present to you Truth in 10, which is the main slideshow that we have in the organization, and I will show you some of the climate reality that we are having at this moment in time. So this is the first picture of the Earth fully illuminated that any of us ever saw. It was taken on the last of the Apollo missions, and it changed the way that humanity thought about our common home. It reminds us that we are all connected and that our actions have an impact on our planet. This photo is called the Blue Marble, and it's a photo of the Earth from NASA's Apollo 17 mission, and it was taken as the crew was traveling toward the moon in December 7th of 1972. So there are only 3 questions remaining about the climate crisis. Must we change? Can we change? And will we change? First of all, must we change? The scientific community all around the world has been telling us for a long time that yes, we must change. Now our mother nation is telling us that we need to do it. The sky is not as vast and limitless expanse that way it appears to us as we stand on the ground and look up. In reality, there is just a thin shell of atmosphere surrounding the planet. And we are putting 152 million tons of man-made global warming pollution into the atmosphere every single day. That pollution, especially carbon dioxide, is building up and it's trapping heat. So here's the basic science of global warming. This has been understood by scientists since the 1800s. Energy from the sun comes to Earth in the form of light. That energy is absorbed by the Earth and warms it. Some of that energy is re-radiated from the Earth in the form of heat. Some of the outgoing heat is trapped by the atmosphere, which is a good thing. It has kept our planet at a stable temperature. Now, however, we have been thickening the atmosphere by filling it up with heat trapping pollution. More heat energy is trapped and it is warming our planet at an unprecedented rate. There are many sources of human-caused global warming pollution: agricultural practices, forest burning, transportation, and many other factors. But the main source and cause of the rising global temperatures we are seeing today is the burning of fossil fuels. Fossil fuels still provide more than 80% of the world's energy. Fossil fuel use and emissions have gone up dramatically since World War II. In the last few years, there was a leveling off as the world adopted more and more clean energy solutions until another recent spike in global warming pollution. As a result of this pollution being trapped in the atmosphere, global temperatures have risen dramatically. 19 of the 20 hottest years ever measured with instruments have occurred since 2001, and the hottest year of all was 2016. And we haven't seen the measurements of 2020, but I'm expecting it to be in one of these 20 hottest years ever measured. Heat itself is a problem in many parts of the world and many parts of this country in the US. Heat affects not only people, but animals, crops, and our weather. This is a man who succumbed to heat exhaustion, being moved by two medical professionals in front of Trinity Church in the city of Boston, Massachusetts. On a global basis, more than 90% of all the extra heat energy trapped by our atmosphere is going into the oceans. This heat makes ocean-based storms like hurricanes, typhoons, and cyclones stronger and more destructive. Half of the increase in global ocean heat content has occurred in less than 20 years. Hurricane Florence produced record-breaking rainfall across portions of North and South Carolina when it made landfall on the morning of September 14 of 2018, near Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina. The extra heat also disrupts the water cycle. The amount of water vapor that evaporates off the ocean increases as the oceans warm. The water vapor is carried over the land and often falls in much bigger precipitation events. When the land can't absorb all the water that falls in these larger storms and downpours, we see floods and mudslides. Extreme precipitation events have produced more rain and become more common since the 1950s in many regions around the world, including much of the US. This is a supercell storm with a column of rain at its center near Glasgow, Montana in July 28th in 2010. Sorry. Extreme precipitation events led to record flooding, which has been occurring all over the world. These are submerged bridges during the 2015 South Indian floods in the South Indian states of Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh on December 2nd of 2015. Sometimes people wonder how global warming can be blamed for causing more precipitation and flooding and at the same time more drought. The extra heat trapped by rising levels of greenhouse gases actually leads to both. And as the climate changes, precipitation patterns also change, leaving some places with less rainfall than before. Changing precipitation patterns can lead to drought and water shortages. Southern Brazil, for example, suffered a devastating drought in 2015 and 2016. This is the Sistema Cantareira, the water supply system in the state of Sao Paulo, Brazil, during a severe drought. Higher temperatures also have a direct effect on the incidence and severity of wildfires. Here we see the number of large fires corresponds closely to years with higher average spring and summer temperatures. Today, the fire season in the western US is more than 100 days longer than in the 1970s. In 2016, this fire in the heart of the Canadian tar sands region destroyed large parts of the city of Fort McMurray, Alberta, and forced the evacuation of over 100,000 people. And this is a line of cars evacuating Fort McMurray as the wildfire swept through Alberta, Canada on May 3rd, 2016. The number of climate-related extreme weather events has been going up worldwide, according to the insurance industry. The last 2 years rank among the top 10 most expensive for overall disaster losses, with over 160 billion US dollars in losses in 2018 and 140 billion in 2019. The first photo is of a glacier in southwest Greenland, was shot in the summer of 1935 and showed glacier ice covering the fjord walls. The second photo is the same glacier which had almost completely melted by 2013, not even a century later due to rising temperatures. NASA has precisely measured the decline in the mass of ice in both Greenland and Antarctica. All this extra melting is raising sea levels worldwide. This flooding occurred in Miami Beach, Florida on a sunny day with no rain. High tides now regularly flood the streets of Miami Beach, as well as several other coastal cities around the world. This situation will only get worse as sea levels continue to rise. Miami is the #1 city at risk in terms of assets at risk, along with Guangzhou, China, New York, Newark, and others. Looking at cities at risk by population, we see that many huge cities in developing countries are very much in danger. If parts of these cities become uninhabitable, where will the people go to live? The Department of Defense in the United States has long warned about the refugee crisis connected to the climate crisis, as well as pandemic diseases, water shortages, and food shortages. Heat stress is now beginning to decrease crop yields from rice, corn, and soybeans. Exposure to higher levels of carbon dioxide also decreases the nutrient content of many staple crops such as rice, wheat, and soy. Infectious diseases, heat stress, air pollution, and waterborne diseases are all influenced by the climate change, the changing climate, sorry, and not in our favor. Warmer temperatures have an impact on the spread of tropical diseases. Modern transportation and air travel play a part, but the potential range for many diseases expands as regions farther and farther poleward get warmer. This means that there are more and more places where a disease like Zika can take root. The main mosquito that spreads Zika and dengue and yellow fever is now covering a wider range in a warmer, wetter world. In warmer weathers, the virus incubates faster and mosquitoes breed more and are able to transmit the disease longer. The health impacts of the climate crisis are often overlooked, but will affect millions of people. This is an Aedes aegypti mosquito feeding. Climate change, along with other factors such as ecosystem loss, is contributing to the worst extinction event since the extinction of the dinosaurs 65 million years ago. All of these threats, including many we haven't even covered here, and the fact that the World Economic Forum says climate change is the #1 threat to the global economy, help to answer the question, must we change? Yes. So do we have to change? Yes, we do. We've got the solutions available to us right now, so we can change. Look, for example, at renewable energy. wind energy was predicted to provide 30 gigawatts of electricity worldwide by 2010. As of 2019, we had exceeded that prediction by 22 times over. The growth in wind energy being built around the world is an exponential curve. Wind energy could supply 40 times more electricity than the entire world currently uses. Solar energy is an even more dramatic story. 18 years ago, the best projection was that the will install 1 gigawatt of solar energy capacity per year by 2010. By 2020, we exceeded that goal by 17 times. In 2019, we exceeded that goal by 121 times. Even more dramatically than with wind, we see an exponential curve in the amount of solar energy installed around the world. Just as we have seen with other technologies such as computer chips and cell phones, solar costs have fallen dramatically. In some regions, solar energy is less than half the cost of electricity from burning coal. In many countries where there's no universal electricity grid, we are seeing consumers and business leapfrog all technologies and install solar panels in places that have long been denied access to electricity. This is a photo in Nimule, South Sudan. Chile is a true solar success story thanks to its policy decisions. The country's solar market took off slowly, but look at what's happening now. At the end of 2018, Chile had 2.3 gigawatts of installed solar and has an additional 16.67 gigawatts of solar projects approved or under construction. There are many regions in the world where this type of growth and development are possible. Every hour, the Earth gets as much energy from the sun as we need to run the entire global economy for a year. If we increase the fraction of this energy that we harvest and use, we can make a lot of progress towards solving the climate crisis and helping local economies at the same time. Battery storage is an essential part of the green energy revolution. Batteries allow us to store excess solar or wind energy and use it during those times when the sun isn't shining or wind isn't blowing. Batteries are also critical for the electric vehicle market. In 2016, the global cumulative storage capacity approached 3.0 gigawatts, which is almost 2 times the storage capacity seen in 2011. As storage technologies get more efficient and cheaper, the market is growing quickly. Global cumulative storage capacity is expected to reach over 900 gigawatts in 2040. Within the next 8 years, highly efficient LED lights are predicted to virtually take over the market. Energy efficient technologies like LEDs save people money and help to reduce emissions by cutting down on the amount of electricity we use. All these automobile manufacturers are now offering or preparing to offer electric vehicles. This is another part of the sustainability revolution. So can we change? Yes. What about the final question? Will we change? Here too, there's exciting news. In December of 2015, at the Paris climate negotiations, every nation in the world agreed to phase down greenhouse gas pollution to net zero emissions as early in the second half of this century as possible. Climate action isn't just about what countries do. We all have to take the lead on climate, and we are seeing corporations, states, and provinces and cities commit to reducing the emissions. We are seeing marches and demonstrations and demands at the ballot box for the change necessary to solve this crisis. So now, please join those who are speaking out, voting, and making everyday choices to fight the climate crisis. Use your voice, your vote, and your choices in the marketplace and in your life. Speak truth to power like your world depends on it. Because your world depends on it. We need your help. To learn more about the climate crisis and what you can do to help solve it, please consider seeing the film An Inconvenient Sequel, Truth to Power, or reading the book of the same name. So thank you for listening to this first part of the presentation. So if you have any questions for this first part of the webinar, I will do my best to answer them.
Okay, we have almost 500 people here, Felipe. So
that's really nice.
Hopefully it's lots of students and from all over the world, particularly from India. So thank you all for joining. Let's ask questions. That's the best way to learn how to get involved, right? If you just remain quiet, you won't know how to get involved with this exciting movement that's going on. So let's ask questions. Let's hear your voices. Come on, guys. Wait, you have some discussion here. Unless you have a discussion and conversation, you won't really know how best to do what you want to do. And Felipe has given us some really exciting news that that actually things are working. He gave us a little bit of a positive insight, a positive view of that lots of things actually working, and all the things that people are trying to do are, but still, we are a long way to go. Okay.
Definitely.
Okay, so can you flash that the question here about the movie and book? So can you flash that back again on the screen?
Yes.
That slide that you had, the movie and the book, so that they can take notes or take. Actually, they don't have to take notes anymore. Nowadays, everybody just takes a picture. Just take a snapshot of that slide, guys. Okay. Okay, so we have some folks who want to chat a little bit, and Raj Rajaram here is from Chicago, one of our advocates of. He's from the. He's not a student. He's one of our IUC active members, and I'm going to see if he has some comments. And anybody else who wants to talk, and all they have to do is send me a text message if you want to chat, or if you just want me to read out what you said. Let us just send text it, and I will read out. So we have some time here to chat. So, okay, Raj, I'm going to unmute you and see if you can unmute us. Come in, Raj.
Thank you, Krishna, and thanks for this wonderful presentation. I want to let everybody in India know that there is a climate reality project office in New Delhi with Aditya Pundir as the head, and they are doing some amazing awareness raising programs all over India, especially in high schools, in rural communities. And if you go to Climate Reality Project New Delhi, you can sign up. And I wanted to ask our speaker, how are you taking this message to the high schools? Because I've written a book recently for high school students, how they can actively get involved with hands-on exercises, involvement in their own communities. So how are you doing it in schools and colleges to really let people know that their voice is important and their actions at that local level to plant more trees, adopt solar can make a huge difference? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. It is really important to move this conversation to our youngsters, because this movement, it's all about the youth, and we need to move forward this conversation. So right now, we are currently having a special interest group where youngsters are encouraged and empowered to take action in climate action. Sorry for the double action, but action is really important during the climate crisis. And yeah, we are moving the conversation to give power to the youngsters. So if you have examples everywhere in the world, Greta Thunberg is the main one and the most visible one, but we are doing this type of how do you call that, encouragement to youngsters everywhere in the world. We are doing talks, we are doing groups activities, and we are joining as one to continue this fight.
But we have to introduce this in the curriculum, Felipe, through influence of the Climate Reality Project. So in the curriculum, it is included, every student learns it, and then if 10%, 20% get involved, our world will change.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, question here from Salahuddin, and talking about plastic. How is that connected to this, and how would that impact the climate, using of plastic or reducing it? Is there a connection there at all?
Yes, so we have really big problem with plastics because most of the residues are being thrown to the ocean, and that affects ecosystem losses in our oceans, and that connects to a lot of other things. Now, after the questions, I will show you something really quick about one of my findings in my master's dissertation, where everything in the climate change scenario is connected, and how it affects us in many ways in our lives, and we haven't seen them already. So as soon as we finish the Q&A, I can show you a little bit more about plastic and how it influences climate change.
I'll make sure we stop Q&A in time. Serene, come in, Serene. I made you a panelist.
Thank you so much, Krishna. Felipe, excellent talk. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it and I enjoyed it. I just wanted to make a point and get some feedback on how universities increasingly have sustainability offices, especially campus universities, want to be pilots for sustainable cities, which is great, but much as computer engineering students and even academics are supposed to be hands off the university's IT backbone and the IT systems, I think we're observing the same thing. Students are passionate about sustainability. They want to turn their campus into live-in labs, especially with project-based learning. They want to implement sustainability solutions. But then the sustainability office of the university is an administrative unit who thinks this will not be appropriate to leave to students, for students and even academics to play with. So there's again some kind of disparity between the university administration and the research and development and innovation and sustainability. So do you observe this? And how do we make sure campuses turn into sustainable little cities or pilot implementations of sustainable cities with the students and projects from the research and development side?
Thank you, Dr. Shirin. So yes, we need to use universities as an example of how we should turn our lives in a sustainable way. We have to give voices to the students because they have many ideas on how to turn a sustainable way of living. We need to showcase the projects that they have, and we need to implement a lot of policies to our universities in order to be much more involved in the climate action movement. So, for example, we can cut energy by implementing cleaner energy resources for our universities, solar panels, and many of them. We can use green, how do you say that, techo? Sorry, green, I don't remember the word, the top of the buildings to collect water
Green
from the
roofs.
rain. Yes,
Green
roofs.
roofs
Thank
and
you.
yeah.
Yes, thank you. And we can use many opportunities to showcase our societies that our universities can do it. So why can the cities do it as well?
Okay, I've got a couple of questions from students. Obviously, this majority of our folks are here. One question is, from Aishwarya Patil says, out of all the various factors that you have related to climatic problems, which do you think is the most significant in terms of overcoming the problem? What solution?
That's a tough question. Just because, let me show you something that I prepared for after the Q&A, and
Okay.
This is some of my preliminary findings from my master's dissertation, and it's all about how everything in climate change interconnects itself, and it's a really complex situation. So it is not that one is more important than any other, but instead we need to tackle every challenge that exists in order to create a better world for climate change. But yeah, there are many interconnections, and we need to work them out right now.
Another question from Nasina Nitish Gaud, very important question. So your presentation makes it very clear that the global warming is taking place, climate change is causing all these problems, and that there are actual solutions that are possible. Then how come it's not happening? How come so many governments are opposing it still and not moving in that direction? What's blocking it?
Yes, that's a great question. There is a lot of skepticism surrounding climate change. Most of the times, we as the people who have the knowledge don't know how to share it with the world. And we need to make it a little bit more accessible to the people in order for them to take action to climate change. Because otherwise, this is going to be a lot of words, but not enough actions. So yeah, it is difficult, and we need to move forward the conversation in order to make people understand that climate change is here and we need to do something about it right now.
Question here about engineering education. Most of these folks are from students from engineering colleges and some faculty. So the question of Sharad Marathe is actually from industry, but working with a lot of engineering colleges, says, what can we do to include a formal education about all these things in engineering colleges?
I don't know if I'm the best person to answer this, but I think it should be mandatory to have climate change courses in our curriculum, and it's not only for environmental engineers, but instead to every engineer in the faculties of engineering around the world, because this is a challenge that is going to be faced by everyone, and we need everyone to be on top of this topic in order to change this reality that we are facing right now.
Are you familiar with any particular course or course module that's been developed in some place which can be replicated around the world?
I have seen a lot of minors referring to sustainable development, and I do remember some universities, but I don't want to mistake regarding the names, but I can share them with all of you afterwards.
Krishna?
Okay. Yeah.
This is Raj.
Yeah, go ahead, Raj.
In India, UGC, University Grants Commission, had mandated environmental courses for everyone in college. And in 2016, I published a book called Ecology and Environment, published through Terry Press in Delhi. And I was very, very disappointed that the sales were less than 1,000 copies in about 2 to 3 years. So we sent letters to vice chancellors of all these universities saying, this is a mandated course. We have looked at UGC curriculum and we have written this book, which will satisfy the curriculum and covers the whole aspect of environment, ecology, and climate change. But adoption by the universities, the seriousness is lacking. And that is where we have to make a push through AICTE and other organizations, press UGC also. Thank you.
Okay, that's something we need to look after. Okay, question here from Abhishek Sharma. There is a general perception that maybe COVID was a response to climate change, and because of COVID, the Earth might have healed itself to some extent. Is that true, or is it just a myth that COVID helped move us in the right direction in terms of global warming? What's your opinion?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I also prepared some stuff about post-COVID climate crisis. So the UN delivered an emissions gap report in 2020. It was just launched in December of 2020, and many of the key findings that they found were that there was a brief dip in carbon dioxide emissions caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. However, the world is still heading for a temperature rise in excess of 3 degrees Celsius this century, far beyond the Paris Agreement, which is the 2 degrees Celsius, according to the Paris Agreement. So let me show you another. So this is the main graph that I wanted to show you guys. And this is the COVID-19 lockdown and how the difference from 2019 was with the emissions. So even though there has been a lot of reductions in emissions in different aspects of the world, industry, ground transport, and power, you can see by the end of here that most of the residential and industry has spiked from 2019. So it's not, we have, okay, how to say this? We have made some contributions to the world, but they are not enough. And let me show you the next one. 1 second, please. Why is it not changing?
I think we have.
This one is here. Sorry. Okay, so this one is quite important. Sorry, I think it's a connection issue that I'm having.
I think we have a connection issue here. Let me see. I think you got bumped. Okay, there you go.
Okay, this one it is. Okay, thank you. So this is the 2015 scenario that we had. This is the 2030 that was expected about the original studies. And post-COVID, there are some reductions, but there are also some projections that just say, hey, the COVID-19 didn't contribute at all to the climate crisis right now. So we need to take a great look to understand that we need to follow up on these actions in order to create some momentum, in order to create some real action to climate action. So yeah, that's my
climate change
response
caused
to
the pandemic also.
Exactly, yes.
Maybe. Okay, I'm going to go to a student from Iran. I'm going to maybe let him speak for himself. Amireza Merabi. I'm going to unmute you, and if you want to talk for yourself, you can do it if you can. Otherwise, I'll read out your comment. Amireza, can you unmute yourself? Okay, I'm going to read out your comment here. It's I'm Amir from Iran. Okay, go ahead, Amir.
Hello, I'm Amir Zamiral from Iran. Before everything, I should say thank you for your very complete presentation. I have a question about your groups that you work on these problems that my countries, like other countries, are faced to it. And I should say my people doesn't know a lot about these problems like warming or something like that. And I should say it's better to say that they are not very serious about that. I want to know, do you have any special group that can, or plan that can help me to introduce these people to my student and also in my university?
Ramiro, question for you. Ramiro, you want to jump in there?
Can you hear me?
What I can say is, this is Raj.
Morning. Greetings. Yes. If you can share with me, I want to type in my email.
He did send his email ID. So he sent his email ID. So yeah.
Okay, and I will reach out to you so we can work with you on programs. There's different programs. And since I have the microphone, Felipe, congratulations, right on the money, on the spot. There's a lot to be done, and I just want to relay a couple of things. We had a workshop in Chennai, a whole day we had over 100 students from all over the world, and their recommendations to change the curricula, it was very interesting. They said you have to sprinkle all these concepts throughout the courses in every semester. Since we cannot add more courses, you can not add more credits, sprinkle, ask one professor to give 1 hour in this semester so you can bring people and we can address these issues. The students say we need to take ownership, we need senior design projects, we need to do community-based learning, problem-based learning with the community, reach out with the high schools, with the local communities. So this is something that we're working on, and I will be glad to share. We'll be having more webinars and what we call collaboratives. And last thing I want to say is related to plastic. I work with the Sandia Labs. They have the technology to recycle every plastic that exists. The problem is that technology needs to go out. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, so that by the way was Dr. Ramiro Hodan from University of New Mexico, who is also the president of the International Federation of Engineering Education Society. I don't know if you're president or past president now. I forget when the handover with Ta'ala happened. But anyway, Amir Reze, keep in touch with IFES, Indian International Federation of Engineering Education Societies, and I think you will benefit a lot from that. Now, there are a few more questions, but Felipe, I know you want to make a second part of your presentation. Maybe you can make that part and then we'll come back to questions after that, okay? And Hans wants to say a few words too. So Felipe, go ahead with your second part of your presentation.
Perfect. Let me just show you a video regarding what happened with the report that I just told you about. And it's really informative. So please take a look at it.
We're not able to hear the volume, so but I guess it's not needed. We've got subtitles underneath.
are being destroyed.
Sorry about that. I noticed that the sound wasn't working, but Aliki will share the link of this video for us. So 1 second. Okay, I will get it to you eventually because it's not working right now. Okay, so it was my second part. So I was gonna show you the report that I just mentioned, which is the emissions gap report, and it just shows us that the COVID pandemic didn't help with some issues here. Okay, perfect. So yeah, this is the report that I wanted to show you, that even though we have had some dips on the carbon dioxide emissions, we had also other areas in the everyday life that have surpassed the levels that we had in 2019. So even though the pandemic helped in some way, it didn't help all the way in terms of fighting the climate crisis that we have today. These are some ideas that the report provides, and it shows how the structural, social, and contextual personal immediate actions that need to be taken in our everyday lifestyles. So we need policies and governance change. We need legal and institutional frameworks, economics and incentives, supply chains and infrastructure. In the social and contextual, we need media and advertising to commit to this, conventions, citizen participation, social movements, social norms, and interpersonal influence. And in our everyday lives, we can just have knowledge and information, behavioral changes. We need to change how we eat, how we use water, how we commit to the climate crisis, the consumer's choices, habits and routines, and attitudes and awareness. So just to conclude, I have an invitation. Within SPEED, we have created a special interest group in the climate crisis, and we are inviting students all over the world to commit and to gather with a lot of people who are committed to this conversation and to showcase that we as students can change the world. So this is my final message. It's time to change the world today, not tomorrow. And I leave you with my email address in order to, if you want to continue this conversation, just send me an email and I will be glad to answer any questions that you might have afterward.
Wow, okay, fantastic job there. Fantastic, Felipe. I have Cindy Cooper here from Lemelson. I'm going to unmute Cindy. Cindy, I'm going to unmute you. You can talk for yourself. She is one of our speakers from one of our recent webinars. Cindy, you can unmute yourself and tell us about what you have just said about the curriculum for One Planet. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, wonderful presentation. So exciting to hear the incredible interest from students all over the world. We presented about an initiative a few months ago to this amazing group, and it was what we call Engineering for One Planet. And the idea there is to do what somebody mentioned before, which is figure out a way for students to get these topics sprinkled in throughout their engineering education, whether or not they're studying environmental engineering. So really thinking about every student from every discipline having fundamental knowledge, competencies around environmental issues. And that includes climate change, but also these things like waste and pollution and plastic. So we're developing a global coalition, looking for people who want to connect with each other and learn more. And there's a framework that was co-developed with academics and industry and others that provides guidance on topics that can be integrated into curricula. So that's on the engineeringforoneplanet.org website. And Felipe, I'd love to follow up with you. Thanks for sharing your email, and great job, everybody. And Felipe, fantastic presentation.
Thank you
Okay,
very
yeah,
much.
I was saying Abhishek wanting to talk for quite some time. Saying I'm unmuting you. He's talking about how can we all collaborate different parts of the world and the students and so on, and to address this problem. Saying you want to talk for yourselves, Abhishek? You have to unmute yourself. Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Sir, I wanted to ask that what kind of collaborative approach we can have in order to solve this problem.
And you're a student from?
I'm from engineering background.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, so
Collaboration. Let's see, what do we do together?
Yeah, so we are creating a movement within the engineering education world. We are uniting students that are really interested and committed in climate action. So that's why we created the special interest group, because we would like to create some conversations, research. We would like to move the conversation forward instead of just talking, but also doing some action in terms of this climate crisis. But as we already seen from everyone who have participated until now, we have many initiatives around the world. So we can just commit and gather ourselves in order to create momentum.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about electric vehicles? What kind of a role can they play in the future?
Curriculums, what? Could you repeat that, please?
Electric vehicles instead
Oh,
of gas.
yes.
Electric
So,
vehicles.
Yeah, so electric vehicles is a really great market that it's taking over the world as of now, because we need to start thinking about moving away from fossil fuels, and we need to start thinking about the future. So yeah, there is a great market, and the batteries technologies are really changing around the world, and we need to continue developing these technologies.
Okay, I'm going
Krishna,
to
can I make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Krishna?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. I'll then get to Balchandra after that. Go ahead.
Every person can make a difference by using less energy, switching off lights when not used, minimize electricity usage, minimize water usage. And if you use less power, there's going to be less emissions. And get active in your community, plant trees. They absorb a lot of carbon dioxide. So again, minimize the waste you create. You talk about plastic, but if we stop buying all these packaged products and go back to our basic roots of simple living, we can start making a huge difference. If every citizen of the world takes action, we can make a huge difference. And leadership, one last thing I want to say is, for example, just in 1 week, Joe Biden has created such an emergency about climate in the US, and has a person just to connect with the whole world now, to get industry, to get government, to get the unions, employees, all working together with one goal in mind: reduce emissions and create a stable planet for us. So unless leadership at all levels, local, state, center, global, plus individual initiatives are taken, this will be something very, very hard to achieve. Thank you.
Okay, Balchandra Prasad, want to hear your point of view? You had a big statement to make. You want to unmute yourself if you want to. You want to jump in? Otherwise, I'll just read out your point. See what, let's see, I think you're not going to unmute yourself. I guess Balchandra has a point, made the point that if you analyze the carbon dioxide emissions, we realize the top 3 countries are China, America, and India, which emit most of the things. And maybe that's true, maybe it's not. But India, the second most populated country after China, is emitting a huge amount. And if the international authorities for environment cannot move a small finger against these 2 or 3 countries, why hurt the other countries?
That's a good question. It's one planet, not a 150 plus countries planet. So we need to take action just because it is our planet, and we need to change the world together. We don't have to think about China is the most polluting country, or the US is, because everyone has to take a step towards creating a better future today. So yeah, that's my main contribution to that question.
Okay. That's good.
Perfect answer, Felipe.
Looking at it. Okay, we're going to get this to Hans Hoyer to wrap up. Hans, come in.
Thank you very much, Krishna. Can you hear me, Krishna?
Yes.
Felipe, let me just, on behalf of the IFES and the GDC and the IUCE community, thank you for this inspiring presentation. And at the beginning of the year, you're the first person giving a webinar, and you're setting a tone that I think is exceptional. And it coincides also with the reality where I currently live, is called the United States, which is finally officially recognizing, yes, there is indeed a climate crisis that we must get engaged. So there's a coincidence that is absolutely fantastic. So I really want to thank you for your thoughtfulness. And the challenge obviously is, and I go back to some of my good friends that are here, what are some concrete actions that IFES, GDC, and IUCE can facilitate and support moving forward? We offer a series of webinars working closely with my brother and friend Krishna, and I want to identify more concrete examples that have been implemented to implement these complex issues. Think about it. The leadership of the three organizations is deeply committed to work with students, and I'm proud that we have several student organizations like SPEED in the IFES community, and from just reflecting on the critical issues to take forward. So I'm very, very happy. Let me just plant a final seed here. I'm working closely with friends in Spain on our global conference this year in November, bringing the students, academic leaders, corporate colleagues, foundations, and so forth together. Let us begin to think to make that event, and I'll contact closely with my friends there to really get engaged on these critical issues. It's time for action. We as leaders in IFES and GDC and IUC want to work closely with students, and very proud and very happy to do this in partnership. Thanks very much, Felipe, again. And we will share this discussion today, your presentation, the videos, we will share globally with others. I'm happy that a student from Iran joined us. We are deeply supported by the complex political issues globally to support the community in Iran and other countries in the world on these critical issues. Krishna, many thanks.
Hey, thanks, Hans. Great ending to a wonderful webinar. And so I just want to end by wishing everybody a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and everybody stay healthy, stay happy, and peace be with you. Take care. Thank you, Felipe.
Thank you.
Ciao, ciao, Felipe.
Ciao,
Abrazos.
ciao.